on the chat. I'm not sure if you can like open your mic and just talk. But you can, if you can't, you can just ask any question in the chat, and there are a few more DAppNode members from the team that for sure will answer the question. So first of all, I'm going to share my screen. Please, can you confirm that you can see my screen and you can hear me? Someone in the chat? Okay. So again, I'm going to do a workshop on how to create a DAppNode package. And to do that, first of all, I will explain the main technologies that we use in DAppNode, so you understand more in deep the process of creating the DAppNode package, how we distribute this package, how it's installed, and so on. So the main technologies that we use in DAppNode are Ethereum, of course, and IPFS. So this is the UI of my DAppNode. And on this tab, I can select the Ethereum and IPFS subtabs, where I can choose to use my own node or use a remote node that it is maintained by DAppNode. This is for Ethereum, but the same for IPFS. So these are the main important technologies that we use in DAppNode, and why you may be wondering. So if I go to the Dapp store, here there are all of these dApps. We used to call them DAppNode packages. And this is basically a smart contract where each of these DAppNode packages is ENS. Not sure if you are familiar with ENS, but it's the same as the DNS for the web, where IPs are mapped to names. But this is for Ethereum, where addresses are mapped to DAppNode packages, and each of these one correspond to an IPFS hash. So just to show you how this works, for instance, this is the ENS, sorry. If I go to the DAppNode Explorer, which is like the history of the DAppNode packages that we have been publishing. I search for Near. Well, maybe it was published time ago, but I can choose whatever from here, like Nethermind XDAI, and this package has this ENS, which is Nethermind .xdai.dnb.dappnode.eth, and this points to this IPFS hash. IPFS is the technology that we use to distribute DAppNode packages. So as I am running an IPFS node, I can go to the UI of this IPFS node and look for this IPFS hash, and it should get me to the content of the DAppNode package of Near. And this is the content. So the package Nethermind XDAI, which is in the Dapp store somewhere, it points to this content, which has the avatar, the Docker image, and so on. So now that I have explained these technologies that we use in DAppNode, I'm going to move forward to the DAppNode SDK, which is the tool that we use for creating DAppNode packages. So any of you, I'm not sure if you're familiar with JavaScript, but it is a JavaScript library. And if you want to read the doc, the README, and check like a small demo on how to use the commands, you can get into the npm and look for DAppNode /DAppNode SDK. You can like have this command, how to install it globally, and so on. So I'm gonna get into the terminal and see and show you how this works. So you can choose to install this this library globally, but I prefer to use npx which is like always using the latest one. So I'm gonna get into the basic directory and I'm gonna start working in this directory. So I'm gonna run npx dabnode SDK, and I'm gonna run the help command to check all the commands available. So here we are. So mainly we have build command, which is like the most important one. I will show you how it works from GitHub. This doesn't have any importance in this workshop. Increase init, next, and publish, which is also one of the most important commands because it allows you to publish a dabnode package to the blockchain, to the smart contract. So it is available in the dApp Store that we saw before. So I'm gonna start a new dabnode package, and to do that, you can use the command init. And now you will get this prompt, and you have to choose the dabnode package name. I will choose the default, which is basic, blah, blah, blah. Same for the version, description, author, license, and so on. Okay, so now I have like the most basic template for a dabnode package, which are these 4 files, which is the avatar, which is gonna be the avatar that is gonna be shown in the dApp Store if the package got published, the manifest, which is this dabnode_package.json, the compose file, and the Docker file. So this is like the most basic dabnode package. I'm gonna build this package. So the build command will upload all the content to an IPFS node, and it will get back, it will return the IPFS hash of the package that has been uploaded. So you have to provide an IPFS node provider, like the IP or the DNS of this IPFS node. If you don't provide the provider flag, it will get uploaded automatically to the dabnode IPFS node. But I'm gonna use my own IPFS node. And to do that, if you have a dabnode, you can just go to packages, system packages, get into the IPFS package, get into network, and you can just copy this IP. So I will copy the IP, and now I will use it. Oops. I will use it as a provider. Provider equals this IP. And you have also to specify the port, which is 5001. This is the API port, which allows you to upload content to the node. And I'm gonna run this command. So now it is building the Docker image, saving it, and now you get this IPFS hash. This IPFS hash will allow you to install this simple dabnode package. You can like copy paste just this IPFS hash in the dApp Store search bar. But before doing that, I'm just gonna show you, I will go back to this IPFS UI of my IPFS node. I will paste here the hash, and this is the content that has been uploaded to my IPFS node. It is the avatar, the Docker image, the manifest, and the compose file. So I'm gonna just paste here the IPFS hash. Oops, I think I have to switch my, yeah. So I was using remote IPFS, but now I want to use the local one because I'm using my own IPFS node for this workshop. So this is the dabnode package, the simple dabnode package that I have just created here. As you can see, this avatar is the same one as this one on the right. So just install the package, and that's it. So this is like the most simple package that you can create and install on your own DAppNode. So next, I think I'm gonna show you like the main important files that a DAppNode package has. And to do that, I will use a very useful guide that Mark has done. So yeah, here we are. So the most important files in a DAppNode package, well, actually, I'm gonna show you an example on the right. So if you just need inspiration, you can go to the DAppNode organization and just in the repositories search bar, look for anything that starts with DAppNode package. And here we have like a ton of repositories. You can choose whatever you want. I will choose, for instance, this one. And here you can like take examples and copy paste and modify on your desire. So the main important files are the manifest. This is like mandatory, and the compose. So the compose, if you are a developer, you should already know what it is about. And this one, which is the dappnode_package.json, it is what we called manifest. And it contains like metadata, like the package name, the version. Let me show you. So this is like the DAppNode documentation of the SDK. You can come here and check all the reference. I'm not going to explain all of them because it will take a lot of time, but yeah, it is mainly metadata of the package, like the name, the version, the description, and so on. Yeah, the other important files, but not mandatory. Well, the Docker file, if again, if you are a developer, you should already know what it is. Also, the setup wizard. This is like, I would say, the most important one in terms of making things more user-friendly. This file allows you to get input from the user and inject this input into the package. I will show you then how to do that. Also, the avatar, which is like the avatar of the package that will be shown in the App Store. Well, this one depends, is up to you. Also, the getting started, which is like a markdown text that will be shown in the info package view. I can try to find something. Yeah. So this box is a getting started. So it's like a helpful text for the user. Okay, so those are the most important files. In the example I have here, so you can check like the setup wizard, the manifest also. So yeah, mainly if you have any doubt about what each of these keys from these wizard and manifest files means, you can just go to the docs because it will take a lot of time to explain all of them. But yeah, it is like self-explanatory. Like you have also here the wizard reference. You can do things like inject variables depending on the user input. You can, what else? You can do also file uploads to the package. So for instance, if you have a package install which has this file upload, there will be this file manager tab activated. So you can upload files to the package. What else you can do? Like, I don't know, you can do backups. For instance, this Web3 Signer operator has this backup enabled, and you can backup the key stores of your Web3 Signer. So all of these things you can define them in the setup wizard. So now I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna do a more complex example, so it is more visible for all of us. So that was the basic one, and now I will get into the example folder. So here I have another DAppNode package which already has the setup wizard and the command manifest and so on. So let's check the Docker file. So this package will copy all the content from the source folder and will start an application which starts with this index.js. Let's check what this index.js does. So it is like a very, very simple script that starts an API, and on the port 80, it will return this simple HTML hello world, and the test env is blah, blah, blah. So this environment variable, which is test env, will be set by the user during the installation process. So here is the magic. This package will be installed by the user manually, and then during the installation process, using the setup wizard, I will ask the user to set this test environment variable. You can, like as I said, you can check what all of these things means, but it is like self-explanatory. You just need to set the ID of this field, the target, type environment, and so on. You can check all of this in the documentation of the setup wizard. So yeah, what I'm doing here mainly is defining an environment variable in the compose called test. Also, I am defining this environment variable in the application itself here. So I am saying that this const will be equal to this environment variable. And finally, in the setup wizard, I'm telling to ask the user to set this variable. So then we can see what the value is in the application. This is like the most simple example you can do, but you can do more complex things. I don't know, such as having here which is the fee recipient address to set for a consensus client. And you can even define in the setup wizard the regex for a Ethereum address. So in case that it is wrong set, you will not be allowed to continue. So yeah, just to show you that example, for instance, is this one that we have here. So in this setup wizard, we are defining this fee recipient address, and I can even tell to the setup wizard what the pattern is. This is like the regex for an Ethereum address. So when you will install this package, which is Lighthouse Gnosis, if you set wrong the address, you will not be allowed to continue. So back to this package. I'm gonna build it. And this is like the previous example I did. During the installation, I will set like a random environment variable test. And ideally, I should, if I go to the UI of this package, which will be served in the port 80, I should show this HTML, which will say hello world, the test inf is, and the value that I have set during the installation process. So this time is taking a bit more. So do you have any doubts for the moment? And if you want me to do anything special, anything specific that you are working on or whatever, feel free to ask. So finally, I have the hash. I'm gonna install these packets that I have created in my dApp node. And voila. So this is the setup wizard I was talking about. If I open on the right my setup, so I can see that the title of this ID, which is test, is example env, which is this one. The description, which is the same as I was asking here. And now I can set here, like I will choose, my name is Pablo, and I will submit. And now the package is installing. And just to remind you that what should happen right now is that right after this package has been installed, well, it is already installed. If I go to the container IP of this package, I should be able to see this this HTML, which says this word. So I can, well, I can go here, copy the container IP. You can also use aliases, but yeah, just to be faster, I will get into the container IP and port 80, and here we are. So this is like the HTML that I was telling you. So this is like a bit more complex than the previous one, but it's just to illustrate you how can you use the dApp packages files like the setup wizard in your benefit. So you can collect the user input and use it on your side. Yeah, maybe I don't have anything else. I think I just wanted to do it simple, but yeah, I think we can do it. We can do like a more complex subnode package in the future. But yeah, that was all. Do you have any question? Would you like to say something? I can explain a bit more things like, so let me show you. For instance, we have other tools. So a dApp package used to be a dApp which has an upstream project. So Lighthouse Prater package. This package has as an upstream project a Lighthouse, and so it uses the Docker image in those projects. So if I go to Beacon Chain, the service Beacon Chain has this. So it is being used, this Docker image, and you define the version here. This allows us to automatically track the upstream project. And whenever there is a new version, we automatically open a pull request in the repo, like this one. So this allow us to automate the process of having to update the upstream project version. And if you want to have a look, you just have to go to the GitHub workflows, and here are the workflows. Is it possible to configure the services that should be exposed to the public through the manifest? Not, but if you want something to be exposed to the public, there is a tool in DAppNode called HTTPS portal. So if you have a DAppNode and you go to system, to network, here is the HTTPS portal, and the default exposable services that are defined. But if you want to expose something specific that is not here, you just need to go to the package. Like I will go, for instance, to the example package I have created, and I will go to network, and here I'm gonna add a new mapping under this title. I'm gonna call from subdomain whatever, like UI, and the port will be the 80. I'm gonna copy this link, and all of you should be able to view my UI. Can you verify it? What? Yeah, it is not working, sorry, but this is because I have too many tab nodes in the same router. So apologies for that, but it should work this way. You just need to add a new mapping in the package that you have created in the network tab, and expose the port of the Docker container, and that's it. It will be exposed to the public using HTTPS. If you prefer like to talk instead of writing, feel free to. I'm not sure if you are able to, but yeah, I can also explain the last thing. Well, let's see. Let's say I have a web app from service A deployed through a DNP that is in charge of allowing the user to set up some config variables. Is it possible to use the SDK to communicate with the Docker host to restart the service so it can use the updated configuration? So my question is, do you have more than one service in that DAppNode package, or you just have one service, one Docker container? What two containers, one serving web app, and another which is the main service package. So ideally, you should. I mean, let's get into the code. So let's say I have an entry point for this DAppNode DNP. And here, you just need, you could just have, well, you want to have a web app for get those environment variables. Why not just having one service and use the setup wizard to get those values during the installation, and that's it. And then in the entry point of the main service, read here like the environment variables that you need. You will have here the N1, N2, and you can finally start the main service with the flags, whatever. Not sure if you are following me, but I think it would be like easier for you that just have one service, and then using the setup wizard, ask for the values that you need, and in the main service, use those values, use those variables at your desire. And always the user will be able to edit those variables through the config view. If the user go to the info config, so you can see here that this is a setup wizard that I showed you before, and the user can change the value here. The container will get restarted automatically with the new values. I can show you that. For instance, this Nimbus Praetor, okay, which has this config, and I'm gonna choose set here E. I update, and the container has get restarted with the new graffiti, and that's it. So yeah, I mean, so here the solution for you would be to use the setup wizard UI which is this box, which is available either during the installation time, but also in the config view of the package, which is it is mainly a beautiful box for setting Docker Compose environment variables, but it's nothing else than that. It is the same as this one. With this one is like more ugly. It is uglier, but it is the same. It is like, okay, so I have this graffiti environment variable, and the value is this one, and that's it. But it is more beautiful to just show this one for us. So right now it's only possible to stop config variables as plain text inputs, right? No, you have more options. So let me look for them. Yeah, I will share with you the docs. But you can choose enum, for instance. You can also choose secret. So let's see each of them. So secret, if you defined this to be a secret, this will mean that during installation, it will be shown as just symbols without the characters. For instance, if you want to set a password, you don't want to show it in plain text. You can also set this pattern value, which, well, I think is better to show it to you. I will install a package. Let me look for one that has a lot of things. I'm going to install Prism. Well, so here, you see, this is let me open the code of this setup wizard on another tab at the same time, so you can know what I'm talking about. So if I go to DAppNode and I open the DAppNode Prism repository package, and I open here the setup wizard. So this thing, that you are seeing on the left is the same as the thing that you are seeing on the right. So feed recipient address. Here we have the feed recipient address. This is the pattern error message. You see here, must be a valid address. You can also define to be required or not. So if you don't set any value, you will not be allowed. You see, because it is telling you. You can also set the description of the environment variable, which is this thing, and that's it. But if you want this, for instance, to be an enum, like a selector, that it will display 3, 4, 5 options, depends on you. You just need to choose enum, which is this, and this way. So it will be enum, and then you define like the options available, and that's it. So if both of them, the manifest and the wizard, are like, it has a lot of things to read, but it brings you a lot of opportunities to choose and to set, to get values and inputs from the user. Did this solve your question?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Cool. Yeah, I have one last question. What is the best development workflow that you recommend? For example, I was like helping a little bit with the TrueBlocks DAppNode package, but well, I usually connect to my DAppNode through the VPN. So that's how I use the default HTTP endpoint to connect, that connects to the IPFS node that is running on my DAppNode, right?
Right.
But when I usually do some changes to the package and then execute the rebuild package, that rebuild command, sorry. Usually the package is already running on the DAppNode, right? So I had issues when you rebuild, the changes are not being reflected on the DAppNode package. So I had to set up a remote context on my Docker on the Docker CLI that I have on my laptop, so I can remotely connect to the Docker host that is running on the DAppNode node, so I can remove or delete all the running containers and the images that are currently installed on the Docker host, and then hit or run again the build command, so those changes can be reflected. So that is a little bit it's not very developer friendly, so to start. So what do you recommend?
So the issue for you here is that mainly for you to test your changes, exactly. You have to build again and you have to install it, and it is a pain in the ass to do all of this process, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, so everything in DAppNode is a DAppNode package, even the core packages, which is the DAppNode UI and all of these things. Everything is a core is a DAppNode package, and we don't used to get that delay in the development process for non-core packages. So for all of this, we feel okay with this process because it doesn't get too much development on them. So instead of having to install it through the UI, you just need to start the compose dev, in which for sure we'll have to have this network because this allows the package to be considered as a DAppNode package to be in this Docker network. And then for you to reflect the changes in real time, you have to take a look at the volumes. So you will have to map the source code of your applications wherever it is located in the Docker container. So for instance, here, I am mapping the volume of the source code into the app folder of the container. And this way, whenever I do any change in the host machine, the Docker container will get updated with the new code. And that's it. I mean, I think this is like, of course, it has more complex configurations later on. Like if it's a JavaScript application, you will have to somehow watch for those changes and redo the application. And you can do that with Nodemon, or I don't know, it depends. But the most important thing is to map the volume of your source application in your Docker container and start it with this Docker network, and that's it.
So, sorry, I missed the initial part that you were talking, because I think your voice froze. But are you running the dApp node? Are you running the same machine that you are implementing your packages? That's what you were saying.
Yeah. So I was saying that I used to develop the Tab Manager, which is another dApp node package, with this Docker Compose Dev. And the main important things in this Compose Dev are first the network, because if you put this, this will allow the dApp node package to be considered as a dApp node package, because it will be in the same network as the rest of them. And the other thing, like it is very important, is to map, like in the volume section of your Compose, you will have to map the source code of your application in your Docker container. So whenever you do any change in your source code and you save, your changes will be reflected in real time. But yeah, you will have to watch for those changes using like Nodemon or any other application. It will depend on if it's Golang, JavaScript, or whatever. But for instance, in JavaScript, you can use Nodemon to watch for new changes in the source code. So this allows you mainly to map the source code of your application into the Docker container. Not sure if you got it. Maybe I confused it a bit.
Yeah, but I'm just curious if you're running dApp node and your development environment in the same machine or not, because otherwise you will not be able to map these volumes.
Yeah, it has to be on the same machine, because otherwise it will be tricky to map the volumes. Okay. Yeah. But
so is it possible to install dApp node and enable the operating system UI, so we can develop in the same machine? Because I never do that.
What do you mean?
Sure, if
Sorry? The Visual Studio, the SSH. Yeah. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah,
I can try to handle it if you want.
Okay.
I think that you're asking if you need to install an operating system in the dApp node, right? So
exactly.
The thing is that you don't need to, because as you can see, Pablo is now streaming his Visual Studio Code. And if you look at the top left corner, at the bottom left corner, you can see that he's using SSH. So he's actually running Visual Studio in his own laptop, but he's connected to his dApp node.
Okay, got it.
So the files, all these files, and the terminal and everything is running on the dApp node, but Visual Studio is installed in his own laptop.
Okay, cool. So that's a feature from VS Codium, right?
Yes. I don't know if there are other tools that allow you to do this, but Visual Studio is really good for this.
Yeah, I can show you like.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I can show you like here on the bottom left, you see here SSH.
Yeah.
So this is the machine I'm running Visual Studio Code on. So this is a tab node, and it is not my personal computer. So ideally, you should develop on a tab node. I mean, not only because it will upload the content to an IPFS node that is running locally, but also because it will be your personal environment will be cleaner. Yeah, I think it's much better. And the extension is called SSH Remote, I think. Remote SSH. Yeah, it is very, very useful.
Okay, that's very useful. Thank you. Cool.